Hi everybody, I'm Nick Rodriguez with the Squid Inc. service team. And in today's video, we're going to discuss how to assemble your lead screw adjustable floor mount stand. Now the lead screw adjustable floor stand is going to be sent with a variety of different mounting options for your print head. So it's a good idea to have an understanding of what your application is before you get started. Some of the earlier steps from creating this or putting it together are fundamental for whatever application you're going to use. We'll get that first. Once we get into the orientation of left versus right, right versus left, and all that stuff, we'll kind of point out the differences as we go along. So to begin, the first thing we're going to need to do is construct our base. This floor mount stand is going to have an A-shaped base frame at the bottom of the stand, and we're going to build that first. Once we get that built, we'll go ahead and piece together our two masts and get them in the right orientation for the direction of print travel. So for our floor, for the base, you're going to see these large sections here. We'll take these out, put them on the table so you guys can see what they are. Take out our hardware kit. So we've got all the sections for our H-frame down here. We're going to go ahead and take a look at what hardware we're going to need. The step-by-step instructions that will be coming with the floor stand will identify the hardware that is needed for each step. So we're just going to go ahead and lay them out, make sure that we've got everything here. And you'll see that each one of these will be labeled, named, so that you can easily identify what parts are needed at what step. So real quick, I'm going to reference the instructions. We're going to see which pieces of hardware we need for this frame, and I'm guessing it's going to be A, but we're going to start there and then move on. So I went ahead and identified what hardware we're going to need. We're going to need the bag labeled A. There should be a handful of screws here. These screws will be fastened using a number 6 Allen. So you're going to hear us referencing different size Allens as we go along. A metric set's going to be very useful for this. So the first step here is going to be to create our H-frame, and we're going to pick the installation points on the side here. Essentially, the frame is going to sit like this. Boom, boom. So we're going to use these side ports here to fasten everything together. So we'll go ahead and get started on one side here, just so that we've simplified things a little bit. And what you're going to see is that in the instructions, it's going to call out, you'll see these 4 different options for mounting. We're going to use the 2 farthest ones to the back side here. So we're going to use this guy and this guy to mount. I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to start this by hand. I'm going to start that in there, and what you'll see is at the end of these posts, they are threaded. So that's there for convenience. So we're going to go ahead and put this on, get it started. Now as I go, I am not going to be tightening anything up fully. I'm just going to get things on there nice and snug until I get everything where I want them to be. There's that guy. And this one. Now we'll go ahead and mount the second crossbar here. Start there. Get the threads started. Like so. And second one. Now we're going to go ahead and finish up the process with the other side of the H-frame. And again, we're going to utilize this back 2 sets here. I'll start off with my top on the back side. For the next step, we're going to go ahead and mount our main mast. So the main mast is going to be the largest segment that we're going to have. It's going to be our tallest arm. The arm segments that come with this, because there's a long and a short, they are interchangeable, but as it is shipped, the longest arm will be on the upright mast here. So for this next step, you're going to need to find the hardware bags labeled BA and BB. These are going to be the nuts that we will use to fasten the mast down using these screws. Again, a number 6 for that, and maybe a needle nose pliers just to place these within the channel to get it started. Before you get mounting, this is the part of the assembly where you're going to have to be aware of what direction the product is moving, right? We have 2 main orientations, right to left, left to right. What you're going to want to do is figure out what side or what direction the product will be flowing for this specific mounting position. What I'm going to do here is just going to place the mast. This mast will mount to the H-frame here. But if we're looking at the mast, we're looking at this conjunction here, this little bracket. This should be on the opposite side of your directional flow. So if your product is moving from left to right, this should be on the right side of the mast looking forward, right? And then if it's the opposite direction, it should be this way, right? So if my product is coming from right to left, I'm gonna want this arm on this side. This is gonna make things a little bit easier. It's gonna give your printhead a lot more space and space things out a little bit nicer for the final installation. So the next step is to go ahead and take one of these BB nuts here, and we're just going to place it within the channel here. You can go ahead and just drop it in there. A needle nose will help you line it up, flatten it out so that you can get the mast on here. Now what I want to do is I'm going to start one side of the mast before I go ahead and add the other two, and we'll get going from there. So now that I got my nuts in place, I'm going to go ahead and grab 2 of these bolts. Again, these are bolts labeled BA. And I'm just going to slide this over my position, get the first one started, like so. Again, nothing crazy tight at this point. We're just trying to get everything lined up. Anything here. There we go. Now on the other side here, we'll go ahead and drop our 2 nuts. There we go. There. And here as well, like that. Now we can use our pliers to kind of line it up where we want them to go. And fasten these 2 down. So as you're going, I just want to point out the kind of the orientation of the stand here. When we make the H-frame here, it's going to have a little offset, right? You're going to have a little bit longer leg space on this side, which is going to be the front side of the stand. This is where all the heavy equipment will be kind of boomed out over. So we want the longest portion of the legs here to be towards the printed direction. The short section here is going to be what's behind. So for walkways and whatnot, we want that to be kind of short. We want the support for the heavier side to be here. So longer leg space on this side, shorter leg space on the back side. Now, before I tighten everything down on the H-frame on the sides and here, this would be a good point in time to kind of align this arm where we need it to be. For the most part, centered is going to be what you can do, or at least where you can start. Depending on where it's being installed in the space that you have, you may need to install it this way or further in the other direction. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and crank down my bolts holding together my frame. and then the bolts holding the mast down before we move on. Now that we've got our frame constructed and our central mast mounted, now's the time to kind of determine how tall we want this arm to be. If you look at how this arm is mounted right now, it is at its lowest possible position for shifting purposes. So if you want to be able to have a higher reach, at this point, this is when you're going to want to make that adjustment. How do we make that adjustment? Well, we've got these 4 or really 8 screws on this side, 8 screws all on the, or 4 screws on the back side as well. So a total of 12 screws that'll have to be loosened up. I will caution, don't loosen these up all the way where they come out, because you will drop your T-nuts. So you want to make sure you just get them loose, right? Not all the way out. Loosen it up. Once you have all those screws loose, you can go ahead and yank this to the height that you desire. So now that we've got the mast situated in the height that we are looking to achieve here, right now I've got it all the way up. This is going to allow us to get the full throw of this adjustability here. So that's exactly what we're looking for. The next step here will be to mount our cross arm here, which is in this case going to be our short arm. But again, these arms can be interchangeable. You can pull this out and put the short arm here and have a longer reach if you want to swap these around. Before we move on and mount that cross arm, we're going to take a look at this bracket here. This is where we're going to mount that secondary arm. Now, before we get too crazy and start mounting into this arm, we want to make sure that these 2 screws here are nice and snug, because if they loosen up, it'll allow for some movement and play in the arm, and we want to eliminate that, right? So we're just going to take our number 5, make sure these are nice and snug before we move on, and that looks good. So for this next step, I'm going to show you exactly where we're going to mount this cross arm to. What we're going to do is we're going to use this mounting bracket here, align it up with the holes on the side here. In this installation, it's going to be more like this. There's our front. So we're going to go ahead and use our screws here. The screws that you'll need for this next step are going to be CA and CB. So CA is going to be what we use to mount this point to this nut bracket here. So I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like first. All right, so before we mount our cross arm here, we're going to go ahead and take our CA screws and fasten them to this bracket here to help provide a little bit more stability on this bracketry. So we're going to put one down here and one at the top here. So right here, just going to start it off by hand. And crank it down. There. Now what this will do is kind of keep this bracket from moving around with extra weight on there, especially when used in production and whatnot. So go ahead and start that one. So since we're mounting it to this bracket here, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten these before we get the rest of the arm installed here. Just like that. We want to make sure that there's no play here, right? We want this to be a solid junction point. So now that we've got that bracket secured, we're going to go ahead and mount our cross arm. For this, you're going to need these screws in bag labeled CB. They're going to be slightly shorter than the ones we use for this bracket here. And what we're going to want to do is line up these mounting ports with the slots on the bracket as so. So I'm going to go ahead and get one started here real quick. Start it by hand. Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and take my tool and get that tightened up. Now again, when you're mounting this arm, make sure you're being aware of the front side of this stand, right? You want to make sure that the lead adjustable bracket is on the back side and not on the front side. Once I got that first one going, I'm going to go ahead and go on the other side and mount this other one here. And we're going to go on the bottom side. On this side, we went on the top. On this side, we're going to go here on the bottom, which allows us to adjust the angle of this arm a little bit more freely. So for applications that need adjustability in that regard, we can get that dialed in. There we go. Now, before we tighten things down, this is a good point where we can go ahead and take a level, a torpedo level or something similar, and just make sure everything's straight. Otherwise, what I tend to do is just try to get it flushed on the top and the bottom side as a starting point, and we can always adjust once we get everything else mounted on there. Remember, there's multiple points of adjustability on this bracket or on this stand, so you kind of want to take things slow, make sure you get things fastened down before moving on to the next step. Now that we have the basic structure of our stand constructed, what we need to do is figure out what does our application call for in terms of printhead mounting. We have a couple of different options when it comes to printhead mounting. We can mount directly to this plate here using this printhead bracket, using the slots over here to kind of mount the printhead itself. Now this bracket can be used to go straight on or downwards like this if need be in your application. So that's going to be one of those as well. I'll show you what the photocell and everything looks like once we get to that point. But for right now, there's your straight on or down shooter bracket. Now, if you need to have a spring-loaded bracket mounted onto your stand, well, then we're going to see this piece that comes with your floor mount stand. And this is our adapter. And what that'll do is this will fasten to this segment here and allow us to mount our spring-loaded bracket right to this arm so that you have that as an option as well. We'll have to adjust this for the right direction. So right now what we're going to go ahead and do is just discuss how we utilize our standard mount that comes with it. And that's what this is going to be. So again, this mount will allow us to print straight on or downwards. A couple of things to point out here. What we're going to do is we're going to pick two of these fixture points. If we're printing straight on like this, we're going to have the top and bottom like that. And if we're going to go downwards like that, you can also do top or bottom or the sides here, right? So there's going to be 3 points of fastening. 1, 2, and then final third right here that goes right through the center of this. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll just get it in place. And for that, you're going to want to have your screws listed EBA, and you're going to want your EA washers as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to start one of these screws, put the washer on it just like that. I'm going to take this and line it up, and I'm going to hand tighten this down here. Got to hold it in place. Second screw on the bottom side, we're going to go ahead and do that as well. So washer on the screw and hand tightens. Now before I tighten those down, we're going to want to get this center fastening point secured first. So for this next part, what you're going to want to have handy is a 3/4 inch socket ratchet. This will help you get this center part here fastened in no time. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to get our collar out for this bolt here. This bolt comes with a collar here, all right? And that bolt will sit right in here, right in the center. Now it's kind of difficult, but you can kind of get it started by hand at first. And then once you get it to a spot where you can get it snug, go Go ahead and take our 3/4 inch ratchet and tighten it up the rest of the way. Now what that'll do is that'll tighten this bracketry to this back post here. These 2 screws here will still allow us to loosen those up and to get our swivel if we need to. So at this point you can put a level on here, make sure that you're straight, and then tighten these guys down. With our bracket mounted and in the orientation that we're looking for, it is now time to go ahead and put in our, or install our printhead. Now, to install our printhead, we're gonna go ahead and utilize the slots that are on this bracket, as well as this plate here to line up. Now this plate, what this will do is it's gonna sandwich in between the printhead and the bracket itself so that we can go ahead and mount a photo eye right there for your trigger. So what we're gonna do real quick is I'm gonna fasten this down at the bottom. In the kit, the screws that you will need, or the hardware that you'll need for this step, will be GA and GB. Should have a number 2 Phillips, would be all you'll need for that screw system right there. So what you may notice with this photocell bracket that goes underneath the printhead is a couple of different slots here for mounting positions, right? What we're going to do is we have to align these slots up with the mounting ports at the bottom of the printhead. Now, the reason why you have so many different slots is to kind of cover your different orientations and directions. You can pick which one of these you want to give yourself a little bit more time on the leading edge or less time. Right here, I'm just going to go ahead and go with this most outer, this outside one here. And I'm going to start my screw on the bottom side here and kind of get that lined up like that. And what I'm going to do is then kind of put my printhead down and gauge it with my eye where the socket is and get that hand tightened just like that. Now before we tighten that front side down, we're going to go ahead and hand tighten the back side. That. We'll just make sure we're even here before we tighten it down. So, all right, so now that we've got our printhead mounted, the next step is to go ahead and secure our photocell. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of snake through the cable. And there's 2 slots here because it's going to be bidirectional. And we're just going to go ahead and screw on the sensor itself. Hold like that. Now you just want to be careful when you're mounting the photo eye not to pass the front of the printhead. We want it to be recessed a little bit. The design of the bracket's going to do a lot of that work for you, but you've got a little bit of a thread work here that can help with adjustability. So right there, this would then go to our controller. We'll cover that in a little bit later. Now that we've covered our fixed position printhead mount, we're going to go ahead and talk about what do we want to do, or how do we go ahead and install the spring-loaded mechanism onto this bracketry. One of the things that you'll see that differentiates from the other setup is we're no longer going to use that flat plate, but we are going to find this bracket here, this adapter plate. This adapter plate will mount directly to this in a similar fashion as the other plate did. Again, using 2 nuts or bolts here to secure the position, and a larger screw, 3/4 inch drive for the centerpiece. So I'll go ahead and show you where that goes. And then once this is all done, the spring load bracket will mount to these 2 positions here and become fixed to this arm. All right, so we'll start the top by my hand, get that going in there, and I'll do the bottom. And we won't tighten these up until we get that center bolt put in there. Now for the center bolt, what you'll see is instead of us using a standard metallic collar here, we're going to be using this rubber grommet to save some space. So we're going to start it there like that by hand, and then I'm going to just work it in there like such. Now what we want to do is we want to make sure that the head of this bolt is flush with this bracket so that our spring-loaded bracket can mount flat to this. So with a ratchet, we're going to go ahead and get that fixed. Like so. All right, we're just going to go ahead and tighten these bolts here, securing the bracketry. Like that. And we can align it as we go here. Right now, both portions are fixed to each other. All right, so our goal here is to use these two screw ports right there and line them up with this bracket. So if we look at it from this angle, we've got enough space to kind of get at that one, and we've got a port here as well. So obviously at this point, we don't want to have the printhead mounted onto this bracket while we're doing this. But what I'll do is I'll go ahead and get this one started. And again, a number 5 should be all you need to get it started and tightened. Get this one on here real quick. And then using the port here, should be able to get this one lined up. There it is. And get that nice and tight as well. So once you have it in the position that you're looking for, go ahead and tighten this section down, and then just check the spring action. With the spring-loaded bracket mounted, we're going to go ahead and mount our printhead to the L bracket portion of it. Now, if we look at the bracket itself, you'll see either one single set of possible mounting positions, or if you're using the larger style bracketry for the Gemini and the long throw, you're going to have 2 different slots here, and you can kind of pick which slots you want to use. And it's going to depend on the orientation, right? It's going to depend on the orientation of the application that you're trying to achieve. Rule of thumb for us, or for me anyway, is to go ahead and just use the front 2 screw ports in for whatever orientation you're in. So I'm going to start this off. Again, I kind of like to start it with my hand. Find the port underneath the printhead. And just get it loosely snug. And then on the back side, we're going to follow it up same. That and that. All right, next on the list is we're going to go ahead and get to our controller and mount that on our side. Now, when we mount that controller, we're probably going to mount it on the side of the mast here. But before we get there, we're going to want to make sure we add any accessories like a stack light or something like that. If you're using a stack light for low-level ink detection, now would be the time to put that on. And the reason being is going to be because we have these T-nuts that are already slotted in here. And so you're just going to want to pick a couple of these T-nuts, make sure you lift them up and connect these out here, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. So here I've got my stack light that I'm going to mount. Now, before I can get at these screws here that are on the side of this bracket, I'm going to have to loosen up my main mast here just to kind of get access to it. And that way we can go ahead and get access to these screws and loosen them up so that I can put them on the floor mount side. Now, they're always going to come with these T-nut mounts on the backside for our other extrusion brackets. So you can remove those T-nuts just like that. And we'll do the same thing with this other one here, if I can. That. And these T-nuts are going to be a little bit too big to use in the channels that are in the spring-loaded bracket or the lead screw stand. So we're going to just use the T-nuts that are already resident. So what I like to do is make sure I have it in the right orientation, the threads of the bracket downwards. I'm going to start my first screw at the top, and what I like to do is just start this one. So I'm going to put this here and try to get this one started. We want to get it started just enough so that it has a little bit of bite. And then I'm going to find my other T-nut here. I'm going to do the same. Okay, there we are. So now that I got them started, I'm just going to slide this whole assembly up, because we don't want it to be at the bottom, right? We want this to be visible. And then once I get it to the position that I want it to be at, I'll tighten it down. Like so. And we'll go ahead and screw on our light post. All right, so next, once we've got our light stack mounted, we're going to go ahead and mount our controller mount. Now your controller mount is going to look something like this. You either have slots or fixed ports here, and then it's going to have these kind of keyed spots here for the back side of the controller. I'll show you what that looks like once we get it mounted. First, what we're going to do is kind of pick some of these screws here, or these T-nuts. We're going to use the screws marked in bag F to fasten this bracket to these T-nuts here. So we've got our stack light mounted. We're going to go ahead and mount our controller bracket. Again, when we're mounting our controller bracket, we're going to want to make sure that we have the orientation of the bracket in the right direction. From the operator, we want it kind of facing towards the operator side, which is going to be the back end of this, this stand itself. So what I'm going to do is grab a couple of these T-nuts that I have located here and start them off into this bracket. Now with some of these lower units here, especially these smaller ones at the bottom here, it might be helpful to have either a partner or a flathead in place to kind of help you lift it up and get it into an accessible spot. So I can accurately, there we go. And all right, so with the flathead kind of holding it in place, I'm just going to start my screw here, like so. And we're going to do the same thing with this other side. So I got my first screw here started. I've got another screwdriver kind of wedging the T-nut up. I'm going to grab my nut here, screw, and kind of push in and start threading it, just like that. There we go. There we go. And now this should be adjustable, allow us to adjust to the height that we want to put it at. Once we've got this mounted and tightened up, we're going to go ahead and use our controller mount screws that are on the bottom of your controller and go into the keyholes itself. And you can hand tighten them here for now, and then go ahead and get them in there nice and secured once you have it in the right spot for your application. With our controller mounted, our stack light on, and our print head fixed, we're already done with our bracket. Now, this lead screw stand is perfect for applications that require a lot of adjustability. You've got changing sizes of what you're printing on, changing size boxes, deeper product or something of that nature. We can go ahead and raise and lower the print head with ease by using this lead screw stand, using the top adjustment here for the up and down, and this back adjustment here for the extension and reach. So if you got a situation where you got a lot of adjustability in what you're printing in, a lot of change, a lot of variability, this stand is going to be a very good option for that. Again, I'm Nick Rodriguez with the Squid Ink Service Team. I hope you found today's video on the lead screw adjustable floor mount stand helpful. If you want to find other videos that are similar for setup and takedown and stuff like that, go ahead and look for us on squidink.com or elsewhere on the web.